All right, I've got an interesting topic for you today, and it's one that several people have asked me to talk about, especially with these new rules and regulations, so much going on in college football. But as someone who covers recruiting, I have to jump on here and tell y'all why recruiting is still more important than the transfer portal. I got several reasons why recruiting is still the best way, the biggest way to build a championship team. Now, I know that with all these, different aspects coming into college football, it's a different game. NIL, the transfer portal, conference realignment, and I'm seeing a lot of people out there stop, paying attention to recruiting because they think that it doesn't matter. And that could not be further from the truth. Farther from the truth, further from the truth, whatever. Especially if you're a Georgia fan watching this. I mean, there's no reason to stop caring about or focusing on recruiting. If you're a five-star Georgia fan, if you are, then you pay attention to recruiting. That's just what you do. So rule number one, or reason number one, why the transfer portal doesn't really matter as much as people think it does. You can't build a national championship caliber team through the transfer portal. If you want to build a national championship program, you do it through recruiting. Everyone knows that, right? That's not any different. Alabama 2020, Georgia 21-22, Michigan last year. The best players on those teams were guys that they recruited out of high school, kept on board for several years, and developed over time. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, Stetson Bennett's a transfer. Yeah, he transferred in, but he was a Georgia guy the whole time. Walked on at Georgia, had to transfer, but the second he was able to get on scholarship, he transferred right back. So he's not some out-of-state guy who played somewhere, made an impact, and then transferred to Georgia. He was a Georgia guy the whole time, and he didn't transfer to Georgia to be the guy. He still had to work his way and earn that starting spot at Georgia. So Stetson Bennett doesn't count. But you build a roster with guys like Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker and Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. All those guys, were recruited and developed by Georgia, and they turned that 21 defense into one of the best defenses of all time. You look at the team now, if Georgia wins another national championship, it's going to be because of guys that have been on the roster for a while, especially on defense. Michael Williams, Smal Munden, Malachi Starks, Dalen Everett, whoever emerges defensively, the inside linebackers that I've talked about for a while. These are all guys they recruited out of high school. And yes, for every one player that leaves, and I'm going to talk about this in another kind of segment of this video, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to explain why later. But at the end of the day, you build a team that's good enough to play for a championship through high school, through recruiting. Now, a lot of programs are using the transfer portal way more than Georgia is. They're not winning national championships. I know Ohio State's doing it a lot this year, but in recent past, and they got Justin Fields to the portal, but most of their impact players are guys that they recruited as well. We'll see what happens to Texas. They got Quinn Ewers to transfer from Ohio State, but this will be year 3. So he's a Texas guy. He never played, made an impact at Ohio State, then came to Texas, right? But yeah, if you're a program that just needs a quarterback, that's a game changer. But you can't build an entire roster through the transfer portal and hope to win a national championship. You just can't do it. You also can't build a culture and a standard at a place when you're using the transfer portal so much. Just look at the Orange Bowl, what happened. Most of those guys that just sat out, decided not to play in the game, just quit on their Florida State teammates, those were guys who transferred to Florida State, right? They weren't there for 3 years. The players that care, that are really passionate, care about not only the team and the program and their teammates, but the university, their school, the guys that take the most pride in that team are the guys who got there out of high school, who have been there for 2 or 3 years, have developed the culture. They bought into the standard and the environment, the competitiveness of that team and that program. They buy in a lot more than guys who have just been there for several months and are just there to play football before they transfer somewhere else or go to the NFL. And again, Javon Bullard didn't quit on Georgia. He played in the Orange Bowl. So did Kamari Lassiter. So did Ladd McConkey, guys who are going to be high draft picks because they got to Georgia out of high school and they bought into this years ago. They cared more about Georgia and the program and their teammates than all those players that opted out from Florida State because that was a program made of transfers that didn't care as much as Javon Bullard, Kamari Laster, Small Munden, Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, Cedric Van Pran, so on and so on, okay? That's how you build a culture and an environment, through recruiting and keeping as many guys as you signed out of high school through the program. And again, some are going to leave. And I'm still going to talk about it in a second, but I want to hit on this other topic too. The transfer rules are going to change. It's not always going to be the wild, wild west with money thrown around at all these kids. And guys are basically playing at 4 different schools in 4 years. There will be some guidelines and regulations. There will be maybe one transfer window, maybe 2 a whole year where you can make a decision. There could be rules where you only get to transfer once and play immediately. If you transfer again, you have to sit out. There will be new rules. So to completely stop caring about recruiting because you think the transfer portal is this end-all be-all, no, it's going to change. It's not going to be like this forever. So recruiting definitely matters now more than ever because there could be new transfer rules coming in this time next year, right? Recruiting matters more than the transfer portal. I'm going to say this again too. If you're watching this, you're a Georgia fan, most of you, it doesn't matter. All the guys who are, if that's what you're worried about, too many people transferring, leaving Georgia, 95% of them are guys who have to transfer because they're not playing. They're not making an impact. They weren't going to matter, right? Rarely will you have a case where a guy contributes or starts or makes a significant impact at Georgia and was going to for another year and they left somewhere else. A.D. Mitchell did because he had a family in Texas. He had a daughter out there, so he moved for family reasons. That guy's a dog. And if you're a Georgia fan, when A.D. Mitchell possibly goes in the first round or if he makes a big catch in the Super Bowl, you get to claim him. He is a Georgia Bulldog, then a Texas Longhorn. I don't make the rules. That's just how it is. But, you know, Jermaine Burton made an impact in 21 when they won a national title, and he left, right? He transferred. A lot of people got, up in arms about it. What happened the next year, right? They won a national championship without Jermaine Burton. They said, okay, see you later, dude. We don't need you. Javon Dumas-Johnson transferred. He was a starter, but he saw the writing on the wall. He knew these young linebackers right behind him were just right on his tail, about to take his spot. Yeah, he made an impact and made several big plays at Georgia. See you later, dude. Out. You want to go to Kentucky? We're going to be just fine. So at other programs, they're losing big-time players to big-time programs. At Georgia, if you're leaving, it's because you're not playing and you can go play somewhere else or you want to make more money. Again, that goes back to the culture thing. If you're leaving for more money or early playing time, okay, you might not be a good fit for Georgia anyway, right? You might not fit the culture. You might not have the same work ethic, the competitive drive, the love for your teammates as you have. But that all grows when you come with 25 guys in a signing period and you learn from these guys. They become your family. You become connected with them. And most of you, especially the ones who make an impact, stay for 3 or 4 years and you're with that crew and you're out, you leave and you have that brotherhood. It's hard to have a brotherhood in a locker room when half of them were playing for other schools last year, right? Half of them are transferred in. They're new to the program, new to the culture, new to the environment. Can't win a national championship that way. You can have a full team that maybe needs a quarterback and you go get a quarterback from the transfer portal. But if you're someone who paid close attention to recruiting, right? When, you remember the Isaiah Crowell days and the Jacob Eason kind of at the end picking Georgia, Florida, or all the other great recruiting stories, because recruiting's awesome. I love covering recruiting, and it's my job to make sure y'all know that it's not going anywhere. Recruiting still matters as much as it always has been. And I know there's the transfer portal kind of, digging its claws into college football and, your favorite team signs a 5-star and he leaves the next year. It happens. That's going to change. But if you're a fan of a team that is in contention to win championships year after year after year, which most of you are, right? You're Georgia fans watching this, most of you. Don't get all hot and bothered by the transfer portal. If a guy leaves, say good luck. Georgia doesn't need you. Georgia's not going to fall apart because you're gone. And that goes for anyone. 99% of programs out there can't say that. They lose their best player, they're taking a step back. But this is not a situation at South Carolina where they lose Juice Wells, not to Georgia or Alabama or to Ohio State. They lost to Ole Miss, right? That's not happening at Georgia, where their best players leaving to go somewhere, except for family, situations like A.D. Mitchell, who still wasn't the best player on the team, but he was an impact player. That doesn't happen at Georgia, because they know that if becoming a better player and winning a national championship is one or two of the several goals you might have, there's no reason to leave, because you are going to be a better player before you got to Georgia than when you left. Or I may have said that backwards. If you play at Georgia, even if you don't see the field, just being in that program and practicing and learning from those coaches, you're going to be a better player. No one goes backwards as a football player when they get to Georgia. They only go better. And if you're not seeing the field, you have to leave. But I'm telling you right now, it's not a big deal. And how you win championships is by recruiting at a high level, keeping those guys and turning them into impact players. If Georgia wins another national championship, it's not going to be because of the guys they brought in through the transfer portal. Those guys might help a little bit, but it's going to be because the guys they recruited out of high school. Those are going to be the players that lead Georgia to another national championship, whether it's this year, 2 years, 3 years. You win championships by recruiting at a high level. Those are the facts. Really appreciate y'all watching these videos. There's got more recruiting scoop coming. It matters. So make sure you're paying attention. We got all the scoop on Dawg Post. Thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you on the website.